Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome, welcome. Blessings, greetings. Welcome to this live talk on holistic tips to manage stress during the holidays. If you're anything like me and millions of people around the world, the holidays are probably something a little like challenging. And you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how people get stressed out. So today, my colleague Amari Dior and myself, Pierre-Etienne Vanier, we will be discussing holistic tips. What's happening during the holidays, how to manage that stress, what to do, what not to do. We'll give you some tips, take them or leave them. Waiting for Amari here to join us during this live. If you're all set, then take a couple of nice slow deep breaths. You made it. And if not, you're welcome to just grab a little water. We'll fast forward to the beginning of this conversation, which should happen within the next few moments. Holistic tips. Let me pin that comment. Welcome, Amari, on this live, and here she is.
Hi, good morning from over here.
Good morning to you. Good evening to me.
How
Hello
are
to
you?
everybody. Doing well, doing well. How are you today?
Good. I'm good. It's been a good morning. It's raining and pouring in LA right now, but we need it, so I won't fuss about it.
Right. Beautiful. So let's all take a couple of nice slow deep breath here. For some of you, you're starting your day. Some of us are ending it, regardless of where you are. Take another breath for the road. And as always, maybe even a little movement if that feels right. Oof, it's a little tight, tense. All right. Shall we do just a quick little check-in here? I want to maybe just a few words, Amari, as to what you're bringing tonight to this live. What's most present for you right here, right now, before we discuss stress during the holidays, as we enter
Oh
in the
yeah.
holidays.
Yeah, thank you, Pierre. I have been practicing this thing, which I heard on a podcast with Marie Forleo. And I've been just during the holidays and all these birthdays that have been going on in my family, there's a big to-do list, right? And what I've done to set that mind, like just change my mindset and as far as just feeling stressed and feeling hopeful or grateful is creating a get to do list. So everything that I say, I'm like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. It's no, I get to do this. So I'm really practicing gratitude in this month, and it's been really helpful. And me seeing the bright side of things, that things aren't just automatically given to us, but it's a blessing for every single thing that we get to do. So that's what I'm bringing here today.
Beautiful. I'd like to have your wisdom and have gratitude for everything that these holidays bring. I don't know if I'm there yet. There's a couple of things I'm like, maybe not. But hey, we're human, right? So
Yeah.
here we wanted to discuss, the tips to cope with holiday stress. Because let's face it, during the holidays, I feel like the holidays are going to amplify feelings and experiences, right? There's a greater
Oh,
sense
yeah.
of fill the blank. For some people, it'll be a greater sense of isolation. Because like,
Yeah.
yay, during the holidays, as you're enjoying, time with the family, and, many people are not. And sometimes it's like, for other people, it's an increased sense of suffocation. That's the word that
Yeah.
comes to mind. Which is like, again and again, having, with the drunk racist uncle, or whoever in your family is
Yeah.
pushing your buttons. And so that's also where this conversation comes from, right? Like this, since this Emotions are amplified. I think we're being worked up as well. There's a lot of, there's a lot of pressure. I
Yeah.
feel like to perform, to feel
Mm-hmm.
certain things, to do certain things. You talked about your to-do list. That's endless.
Yeah.
I know it's interesting for me because I'm after 8 years of living in the US. I'm back in Egypt, where the spirit of Christmas in the US starts basically after Thanksgiving. It's like let's just switch the merchandise and
Right.
we'll that's it, right? We already, it's end of November and we're already being drilled like this is Christmas, Christmas,
Yeah.
Christmas. And that's interesting because here there's really none of that.
Oh,
Not to say
wow.
that people don't celebrate, and there's it is the end of the year. There's certain things that are happening, but there's so much less pressure.
Mm.
And I want to mention that because I feel like cultural pressure is a reality during the holidays, particularly in the US,
Yeah.
where there's just so many things that have to be done. And the last thing I want to mention is there's this, and there's the fact that also it's the end of 2021. And the end of 2021, we're almost 2 years into that
Pandemic.
whatever pandemic, whatever you want to however you want to describe it. And I think everybody, at least I'm not going to project, but I and many people I know are kind of done with it, and like
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of everything that's going on around me, in terms of my kids being kicked out of school because like this third or fourth degree exposure to somebody who may blah blah blah. And so life
Yeah.
is being, there's so many disruptions for the past
Yes.
2 years, so much stress, that let's acknowledge too that when we slow things down, when I stop working so much and actually start to feel, for some of us, that low time, that slowdown might also equates like, oh, I'm feeling a lot of anger, frustration, emotions, sadness.
Right.
And here I'm projecting because obviously, I'm transitioning from between one life to the other. And so I know I do feel that transition, but I want to say that how society is so polarized right now. I think a lot of people are not looking forward to sitting with loved
Yeah.
ones because it's become so controversial. Are you vaccinated? Are you not vaccinated?
Yeah.
Which vaccine? Did you get your booster? Did you
Exactly.
get your booster? How come you're not wearing your mask? And
Yeah.
and this has come in between, the life of so many people in the families, that for anybody who's resonating with that, I want to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That sucks. And somehow it doesn't have to be this way. Anyway, we'll get into the tips for later, but
Yeah.
just wanted to
Yeah,
acknowledge the
definitely.
context of where we are.
It's so true, and I deal with the separation, unfortunately, with my family. There is a split in a lot of circumstances when it comes down to how we handled the pandemic, and it is tiring. It's stressful. It can create some internal rage and feeling of being misunderstood. So, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for bringing that up because it is something that sometimes I even will just try to look on the bright side, but also not deal with what's going on in the subconscious mind when I think about um, certain events that have happened during the pandemic and because of the pandemic. So thank you for sharing that and thank you for bringing that up. I'm sure that will help many people that are watching this, whether it's live or on the replay.
So yeah, so the initial message here, and we'll get a little deeper in a few moments, is, well, if you're feeling really stressed out, at the end of this year, you're normal, right?
Yeah.
You're human, you're normal. Welcome to the club. So, having said that, here we are looking into holistic tips to
Mm-hmm.
cope with holiday stress. There's a couple of things I wanna mention. Would you like to share? I know you're more organized than I am. So would you like to give it a stab as to like what you'd like to
I
share?
think Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest things for me is setting boundaries and lowering expectations. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is like, for me and my experience with my family and friends, is that is the biggest thing, that when I don't listen to my own boundaries, when I have these set expectations that are rigid, I end up hurt and other people end up hurt. So that is one of the biggest things that I suggest for anyone, is to understand what is your boundary. Think about, what are you just not okay with talking about, and set a boundary. Don't be a part of it. Or what is a yes and what is a no for you? And going into if those of you who are seeing family members this holiday, who get to see family members this holiday, if those are some things that you might be worrying about in the back of your head, like, what if this person says this? What if this is their point of view on this? Just establish your boundary and prepare yourself. How are you going to deal with it? What is the small mantra that you're going to say to yourself before you step in that house, or before your family members come into your house? And what is the sentence that you're going to say? This is a boundary for me. I'm not going to be a part of this conversation. I'm going to go get some mac and cheese in the kitchen. You guys go ahead. Whatever it might be. And then also, the setting expectations. This is one thing that I have learned during the pandemic, and just throughout my healing journey, that set as with chronic pain itself, is setting expectation is a very, very dangerous thing, because we end up saying, and I was very guilty of doing the shoulding people. They should do this, and I should be able to do this, and they should see my point of view, while not even communicating those point of views clearly. So those are things that, if you're going to be with people this holiday, set ex don't have rigid expectations, but have a conversation about your boundaries. So if you are a person that wants people to sit 6 feet apart and eat their food, and you organize it in a certain way in your household, then text those people and let them know, this is what to expect from me and my household. And if you don't want, and then not to have, and that's your boundary. And if you get upset and people don't want to respect that, they don't come. But at least you know ahead of time, and the holiday isn't ruined, right? And then for those of you who might not be seeing family this year, and maybe feeling a bit lonely, or maybe you feel relieved, whichever it might be, make sure that you set expectations for yourself to take care of yourself. So if you know you're a person who is not an introvert, but who is an extrovert but is alone during the holidays, then schedule some calls during this time, while you're off of work or while you have downtime, and schedule some self-care time with yourself. What are you going to get to do for yourself now that maybe the workload is lower? So these are the two things for me that, to start thinking of while we go into the holiday, to prepare yourself to get these things all established before Christmas, or whatever holiday you all are celebrating that are watching. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I really appreciate the reminder for boundaries, and because I just had that conversation, recently with several people, um, and if I may, I just want to read like a short email,
Yeah.
um, from a client. Let's call her Jessica, and she was having some boundary issue, challenging family. Um, and she said, I felt angry, overwhelmed, and sad, and I decided to set boundaries for myself and my family. It took a lot of courage, as I'm not used to speaking up for my own needs. Setting up boundaries is new to me, and I'm grateful that I'm surrounded by humans that understand, and it's not so scary to speak about it. And that here she's referring to the groups, some groups, some gatherings that we have, that we hold, where people practice, right? I know for me, setting boundaries is hard at times, and I'm getting a little better. I'm improving with age, but let's recognize that for many of us, it is a challenging task.
Yeah.
And so my invitation here would be to potentially practice, just like I appreciate also your invitation to find a mantra, to find a response that when you notice that stress, bubbling up, and you're about to, throw your glass, like the champagne in their face or whatever it is, what is it that needs to be said? And maybe it's appropriate, to throw something at your uncle. But let's know that here it is about, like, is my stress appropriate? So finding a way, like, how will I want to respond, right, if this comes up? Because I trust most of you probably know what's coming up, whether
Yeah.
you're going to be, on your own, whether you're going to be with family, with other people. You probably know what are the issues that are going to come up, and the question is really how
Yeah.
far you want to go in these. And so for me, I know I don't really have, any magical tips and tricks. I do have a couple of steps, which is number one, acknowledging that when that stress is coming up, because I think many of us, including myself at times, will, like you said, or like, no, I'm not gonna say anything. Okay, he keeps on saying that, but I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
Let's remember that when we do this, what I'm doing is like, well, basically, instead of, speaking my truth, I'm just gonna, maybe, be unpleasant, or I'll take this on other people. Maybe I come
Mm-hmm.
home and, I'm having an argument with my wife, and it's not about my wife, it's not about what we said, it's about what was said 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when maybe, I was replaying a role of, like, not speaking up for myself. So here, number one, acknowledging the stress, and number two, applying a strategy. We've talked about
Mm-hmm.
strategies before. I love the mantra. One of my favorite mantras that was shared by Dr. Brené Brown around the power and the vulnerability was like, I choose discomfort now over resentment later.
Yes.
Which is like, I'm going to tell him or tell her, like, this is not okay, what you just
Yeah.
said. And that might create a little discomfort and silence in the conversation, but at least I said my piece.
Yeah.
And so that I'm not resentful later, and I'm like, I should have tell him, because I
Yeah.
do sometimes. I know and many people I know, we do that. It's like, oh, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I do that? And we have this sense of like, I'm resentful towards this person, towards myself, for not speaking up.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that for me, the best way to manage that stress is to use some kind of technical words, would be to complete that cycle of activation, which is like your
Okay.
body's going to bring up energy, it's going to mobilize stress and energy for you to do something. And
Mm-hmm.
whether, like you said, it's like, you know what, I'm out of it, I'm going to go get some more mac and cheese in the kitchen, which I think is a
Yeah.
fantastic strategy, or I'm going to tell you off, which I think is an equally valuable strategy. The
Yep.
question is really, how do I want to use that energy? Because it requires to take action. The primary
Right.
target, when you notice that energy bubbling up, the primary target of that fight or flight response that pushes you to move towards something or away from something will be limbs, right?
Yeah.
And so do something with them, right? Do something
Yeah.
with them, move around, get up, go get another drink, go get another plate, or again, speak your truth. Life is
Yeah.
short. I think if COVID taught us, or taught me anything, is that, things can shift very quickly. And so the question is, why are we not having these conversations? Like, if
Yeah.
that was, and I don't mean to sound catastrophic, but if that was your last Christmas party or your last New Year's Eve party, would you shut up? Would you remain silent? Or would you
Mm-hmm.
just actually want to say what you need to say? And when I say that, I don't mean just insulting people. I'm hoping
Yeah.
I trust there's probably frustration, and I trust there's also love.
Yeah.
And here, that's an invitation and a reminder also to me and to everybody watching, that's like, hey, let's face the somehow dark reality that I don't know, maybe you might not be able to gather in crowds in another six
Yeah,
months because you know what? Some countries right now are unable to do so. Like that's not
exactly.
even conspiracy theory. It's just a matter of fact. What if it's your last Christmas? Is there anything that you'd like to tell these people, right?
Hmm.
Both in terms of like positive and negative. And I don't like these words, but at least in terms of like what needs to come out, right?
Yeah.
You get on my nerves and I love you. And potentially, right? And that's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah,
So number one strategy for me would be as much as possible to be honest,
yeah.
right? Because again, life is short. And if that's not an option, if the more practice that needs to be, done before doing those, the more courage that needs to be mustered.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of strategies, let's remember here to keep it. I mean, you mentioned earlier, number one, managing expectations. I think it's fantastic. For me, it's all about short, brief strategies.
Hmm.
What do I mean by that? The two strategies that come to mind right here, right now, would be maybe I'm going to breathe for like 1, 2, or 3 cycles of square breathing.
Yeah.
For those of you who are not familiar, what am I talking about is as that person talks to me and say what they're saying, I'm going to
Hmm.
breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, hold it for 4. You don't have to, get in a meditative position with your
Hmm.
legs crossed to do this. You can just be in that conversation and engage in that breathing pattern, which is a
Yeah.
fantastic way to self-regulate that nervous system pretty quickly and quite discreetly.
Yeah.
Uh, Another one would be like a nice deep exhale. And that seems
Hmm.
so simple. And yet remember that when we exhale, we're gonna activate that parasympathetic response. We're gonna slow down the heart rate. And so when I
Hmm.
lengthen my exhale, here I'm also giving myself just a little bit more room, a little bit more space to manage that
Yeah.
activation. Um, and and the last thing, which is more of a, you know, for me at least requires also more practice, is to remember the context and to have compassion for yourself and
Oh,
for
yeah.
the other people who are going to be pushing your buttons, because know that they're probably doing this out of their own confusion, their own pain, their own frustration with everything that's going on. Regardless of where you live today,
Hmm.
you're probably carrying a lot of stress in your body. There's nothing wrong with that. This is not a sign of weakness. It's just a sign that you're aware of everything that's going on around you,
Right.
right? And if you're not affected by what's going on, good for you. You're either living somewhere on an island and you haven't followed the news, or potentially you're in deep denial. So know that that stress is normal and
Hmm.
it's okay. And the goal is not to not experience stress rather than just let that stress move through.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, my tips here for the holidays. Reminder
Those
to
are amazing tips. Those are amazing tips. And I really like the quote that you said about rather have discomfort than to
resentment,
to
discomfort now
have
over resentment
resentment
later.
later. And that's so true because so many times in my life I was taught to just hold my tongue and like not cause any confrontation. And what I've learned, like you said, through COVID is just I've come to this place where I'm no longer ignoring who my true self is and what my values are.
Mhm.
And I have just created a line where I'm just like, I'm okay with this. I'm not okay with this. And I'm gonna be honest about it. And if that means that I have to say that mantra, like I said earlier, where it's just like, hey, not okay with this. This is what I think. But this doesn't need to be a conversation. We see it on different sides. And then just like take a breather and, like you said, walk away, use those limbs. Because for me, I notice my stress mainly here in my chest, close closes my throat,
Mhm.
and it's actually like my body is has learned to say like don't say anything, but there's this fire within me that is like you have to say something or else you will be sick later, literally, physically, emotionally, mentally sick. And I have realized, and what I have just from my reading and working with clients and working with myself, is that everyone is a human being and we're all trying to just be and survive. And with that stress response, it's just our nervous system saying, hey, I'm trying to make you feel safe. And
Right.
this doesn't feel safe. And so we all have these different reactions and these different thought patterns where I think the way that I think, because at the end of the day, my mind, my subconscious mind, my conscious mind, my experiences, the experiences that my muscles hold, all think that this is what this frame of thinking is what keeps me safe. I also have to understand that the person that will be across the table from me thinks the same exact way, because we are all human beings. We're all trying to just keep ourselves safe. It is normal to have this different stressor because we face these other things where somebody is trying to survive in a different mindset than I am. And that's normal. So the practice of understanding that people are people, people have their own experiences, people have their own traumas, people have their own way to cope. But if I have a boundary, if I know myself, if I understand that, hey, I love myself, I can't be dishonest about who I am. But I also know that if I expect that for myself, I have to give that same space to other people. And so this is where, in a sense of going with family during the holiday, it's just like, I feel like just knowing that allows me to also release some tension, which is just like, you're just being a human, you know, you're just being a human. This is my boundary. I'm being human too. But at the basis, this is what it is.
Yeah, right. Reminder to, yeah, a little compassion goes a long way, right?
Yeah.
Both to self and both for self and others. And the last thing I want to mention, and you kind of mentioned it. I just want to again reach out here to the people who will not be with family members because of maybe some overreaching safety measures, or simply because you can't travel, or simply because you may not have family in your life. Um, like you said, like scheduling a few things of self-care goes a long way, and even finding circles. I know for me there are two important organizations that I recommend to a lot of people, which are the Sacred Sons and the Sacred Sisters, who are both kind of like sister organizations or parent organizations, and they hold space, they hold circles, they hold gatherings for people. And so, well, obviously I don't have any experience with the Sacred Sisters, but I do have extensive experience with the Sacred Sons. I want to say these spaces, what a beautiful way, right? To show up and potentially to spend an hour or two in a council with a bunch of strangers and to say, this is how I feel right now, and make
Yeah.
space for your own humanity. Whether
Mm-hmm.
there's sadness, whether there's frustration, whatever is there, I think it can be a beautiful gift to yourself, to give yourself permission to be in a space where I'm not going to pretend that everything is great right now. I'm just going to
Right.
safe space to express that. And my hope is that, you will feel just a little lighter during the holiday.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you,
Uh,
Amari. Thank
yeah.
you, everybody. Anything you'd like to mention in closing?
Just the normal closing. You guys, thank you all for watching. Anyone who is watching live or on the replay, please, if you have any questions about healing or pain management, contact Pierre at P. Vanier, or you can send some questions to Healing Studio Online. If you have some pain management questions as well, send it to Body of Moral Wellness. You can find all of this in the detailed section below once we post this. And we'll see you again Tuesday at 8 Pacific Standard Time.
That sounds good. And all the replay will also be on the Healing Studio Online YouTube channel, and many more things, including some free guided meditations for those who want to do a little meditation during the holidays and beyond. Thank you so much, Amari. Thank you, everybody. Be well. We'll
Thank
see you.
you.
Take care.
Bye.